It was a quiet afternoon in the small house where Ellie lived with her husband, Jack, who was wheelchair-bound due to an accident years ago. Ellie was 6 months pregnant and lovingly cared for her husband, ensuring that all their needs were met as they prepared to welcome the baby. However, in recent weeks, something seemed out of place. Jack acted strangely, avoiding eye contact with Ellie and leaving the house with vague excuses. Ellie began to feel a knot of distrust forming in her stomach. One night, while Jack was sleeping, Ellie decided to take action. She discreetly installed a hidden camera in the living room, just where she knew Jack spent most of his time when he was home. She didn't want to believe he might be hiding something, but she needed answers to calm her growing concerns. The days dragged on, and Ellie found herself constantly checking the camera footage on her laptop. She felt a mixture of guilt for invading Jack's privacy and despair at not knowing what was going on. Until, one afternoon, while reviewing one of the recordings, Ellie saw something that made her freeze to the bone. Jack, just when he thought he was home alone, was getting up from his wheelchair, Ellie's heart racing as she watched in disbelief at the scene before her eyes. Tears flooded her eyes when she realized that her husband was not unable to walk as he made her believe. The feeling of having lived a lie for so long left her in a state of shock. In the sunny summer of 2005, in a small town in the Maine countryside, Ellie and Jack met for the first time. She, a young medical student with big dreams of becoming an obstetrician, worked part-time at a local coffee shop to pay for college expenses. He, an electrical engineering freshman at the local university, often visited the cafeteria to study and drink coffee. That July afternoon, Ellie was busy behind the counter, preparing coffees and serving customers, when Jack walked in. He was concentrating on his books, somewhat distracted, until their glances accidentally crossed. Ellie noticed how clear and piercing his eyes were, contrasting with his shaggy dark hair. "Can I help you with something?" Ellie asked, trying to disguise a nervous smile. Jack blinked, as if awakening from a trance. "Oh, sorry. Yes, please, a black coffee, without sugar." And so began an unpretentious conversation that quickly turned into shared laughter and stories from their lives. Ellie discovered that Jack had been passionate about electronics since childhood and dreamed of working in medical technology one day. Jack, in turn, was impressed by Ellie's dedication to medicine and her willingness to help others. Over the next few months, they met several times in the cafeteria, sometimes studying together, other times just enjoying each other's company. Their conversations flowed naturally, and they began to share their deepest dreams and hopes for the future. One night, under a starry sky, Jack took courage and invited Ellie for a walk in the city park. Sitting on the swing of an ancient oak tree, they talked about their hopes of building a life together, of how they wanted to make a difference in the world. "I know it's early," Jack said nervously, "but I feel like I've known you for years. You're amazing, Ellie." Ellie smiled, feeling her heart race. "I feel that too, Jack. You are unlike anyone I have ever met." And so, that night, between soft laughter and the glow of the stars, Ellie and Jack began to write together the story of their lives. A chapter of love and promises, where every look and every touch revealed the depth of their bond. At that time, they did not know the challenges that fate had in store for them. But at that moment, under the protective shadows of the old tree, they only knew that they were exactly where they should be, together, with hope and dreams for the future. In 1998, in the small Vermont village where Ellie spent her childhood, she discovered her passion for medicine in an unexpected way. Her parents, both teachers at the local school, have always encouraged her and her younger brother Simon's curiosity to learn about the world around them. One day, during a visit to the city clinic with her mother, Ellie first saw the delivery room. Soft sunlight filtered through the windows, illuminating the obstetrician's focused face as she helped a mother deliver her baby. Fascinated, Ellie approached the window and watched in silence, her eyes full of admiration and curiosity. Her mother, noticing her daughter's interest, smiled and led her into the waiting room. There, Ellie had the opportunity to talk to the obstetrician and learn about what it meant to bring new lives into the world. From that moment, Ellie's dream was sealed. She wanted to help people in the same way, to be a presence of comfort and security during the most important moments of their lives. Over the next few years, Ellie devoured books on medicine, biology, and anatomy. She stood out in school for her dedication to her studies and the way she sought to deeply understand the mysteries of the human body. Gradually, she began to realize that her interest was not only in helping mothers and babies, but in understanding all aspects of human health and how it could make a difference in people's lives. As time went on, Ellie's love of medicine grew, fueled by the inspiring stories of doctors and nurses who dedicated their lives to caring for others. She knew her path was clear. She wanted to follow in the footsteps of those she admired and become a doctor who could offer care and hope to patients. When it came time to decide on college, Ellie did not hesitate to choose a medical course. She enrolled at the University of Vermont on a partial scholarship and began her journey to fulfill her childhood dream. In the halls of the university, Ellie found mentors who inspired her and colleagues who shared her passion for medicine. Each class, each internship, each clinical experience brought her one step closer to her goal. She absorbed it all with an insatiable hunger for knowledge, knowing that each new learning brought her closer to helping others in the way she had always dreamed of. Until Jack came along, and he soon turned into her biggest and best company. Over time, Ellie and Jack grew closer and closer, sharing not only their dreams and aspirations, but also the struggles and growth moments they faced together. After years of hard study and dedication at the University of Vermont, the long-awaited graduation day has arrived. The ceremony took place in an open field, under a radiant blue sky. Ellie proudly wore her prom cape and bonnet over her flawless white gown. Jack, beside him, was elegantly dressed in his suit, a wide smile lighting up his face as he proudly held his electrical engineering degree. After the ceremony, Ellie and Jack walked together across the lawns of the university, recalling the challenges and achievements they have faced over the years. They sat under an ancient tree, where they had met years before, and looked into the future that awaited them. "I can't believe we finally made it," Ellie said, looking at Jack admiringly. "So many years of study and now we are here, ready to go our ways." Jack nodded, a gleam of happiness in his eyes. It was a long and difficult journey, but it was worth it. "And now, Ellie, we're ready to start our next adventure together." Ellie smiled, feeling grateful to have Jack by her side. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jack. You have been my rock over the years." Jack gently placed his hand on hers. "And you were my inspiration. His passion for medicine, his commitment to others. You make me want to be a better person every day." Ellie's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I know the road ahead will be challenging, but I am ready to face it, as long as we are together." Jack smiled lovingly. "We will face everything together, Ellie. We're just getting started." They knew that the roads ahead would be winding, but they were confident that as long as they were together, they could overcome whatever obstacle life had in store for them. After a few years of professional and personal growth, Ellie and Jack decided to take the next step in their relationship. On a sunny spring afternoon, they met in a picturesque garden by the lake, where friends and family gathered to witness their wedding. Ellie walked down the aisle in a white lace dress that flowed smoothly around her, her smile radiating happiness as she held a bouquet of white peonies. Jack, waiting at the altar, stared at her in awe, his heart pounding in his chest as he watched the woman he loved walk toward him. When Ellie came to his side, Jack gently held her hands, losing himself for a moment in the glare of her eyes. The celebrant began the ceremony, talking about their love and the challenges they faced together, but also about the shared joys and dreams that united them. Ellie and Jack exchanged heartfelt vows, promising to support and love each other through all seasons of life. Their words were simple but loaded with meaning, reflecting the journey they had traveled to that moment and the promise of a future together. "Ellie," Jack began in a steady voice, "from the moment I met you in that coffee shop, I knew you were the person I wanted to build a life with. You inspire me every day with your dedication to medicine, your compassion for others, and your unconditional love for me. I promise to be your support, your partner, and your best friend, today and forever." Ellie's eyes filled with tears of joy as she held Jack's hands tenderly. "Jack, you are my safe haven, my rock in the hard times and my joy in the good days. With you, I found not only true love, but also a soulmate. I promise to love you unconditionally, honor our commitments, and face the challenges together, side by side." And so, In front of their loved ones and under the bright blue sky, Ellie and Jack exchanged rings and became husband and wife. The kiss that sealed their marriage was warm and full of promise for the future, while everyone around applauded and celebrated their union. The wedding party continued into the sunset, with laughter, dancing, and toasts that echoed the joy and love Ellie and Jack shared. For them, that day was not only the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new and exciting adventure together, where each chapter would be written with love, trust, and the mutual support that defined them as a couple. In the years following their marriage, Ellie and Jack built a full and fulfilling life together. Both dedicated to their careers, they found a balance between passionate work and the precious time they spent with each other. Their home, a cozy retreat in a quiet town just outside Burlington, Vermont, was a testament to their shared love of simple details and the adventures that awaited them. On a Saturday afternoon, after a relaxing breakfast on her sunny balcony, Ellie smiled at Jack as they looked at the map spread out on the dining table. "Where are we going this time, Jack?" Ellie asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Jack, with a mischievous smile, pointed to a point on the map. "How about a trip to California? We've always wanted to explore the wineries of Napa Valley." Ellie nodded excitedly. "This looks wonderful. We can book a guided tour of the wineries and spend a few nights under the stars." "Exactly," agreed Jack, gently touching Ellie's hand. "It will be a great way to relax and enjoy some time just for the two of us." During the drive to Napa Valley, they talked about everything from challenging projects at work to plans for the future. The winding road was a metaphor for their lives together, curvy but always taking them to new horizons. As they reached the valley, they were greeted by the calm of the verdant hills and the vineyards that stretched as far as the eye could see. During a wine tasting at a boutique winery, Ellie and Jack exchanged complicit glances, silently sharing the joy of being there together, living a moment they had planned for so long. In the evening, under a starry sky, they sat on a terrace overlooking the vineyards, the soft sound of crickets accompanying their laughter as they recalled special moments from their journey there. "I feel like I couldn't be in a better place than this, next to you," Jack said, raising his glass in a toast. Ellie smiled, feeling grateful to have found someone who understood her passion for medicine and still supported her in all her decisions. "I couldn't agree more. You are my partner in all adventures, Jack." But one day something happened and changed everything. During a work trip to New York, Jack faced one of the most challenging moments of his life. The day began with intense meetings and negotiations that lasted until late at night. When it was finally over, Jack felt the usual relief of knowing that he would soon be coming home to Ellie. However, while driving back to the hotel, a runaway car crossed the oncoming lane and violently collided with Jack's vehicle. The impact was devastating, leaving the car unrecognizable. Jack was rushed to the nearest hospital, unconscious and seriously injured. Meanwhile, at her home in Vermont, Ellie was anxiously waiting for Jack's phone call, which should have arrived hours ago. Every touch of the phone made her jump with anticipation until finally the call came, but not in the way she expected. "Hello?" Ellie said, her voice trembling with concern. "Ellie, this is New York Hospital," said a serious voice on the other end of the line. "There was a serious accident involving your husband, Jack. He is in critical condition, and we need you to come immediately." Ellie's world collapsed when she heard those words. Her heart clenched with fear as she struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "What happened? How's he doing?" Ellie asked, struggling to keep her cool. "The situation is very serious, Ellie. Please come as soon as possible," the hospital voice replied. Ellie hung up the phone with trembling hands, her whole body shaking with shock and anguish. She sat on the sofa in the living room, unable to fully process what she had just heard. Tears began to flow down her face as she held the phone tightly, trying to muster the courage to face what was to come. "Jack," whispered Ellie, her mind spinning with thoughts and fears. She knew she needed to be strong, for him and for herself. With a monumental effort, Ellie got up and began gathering her things, preparing for the harrowing journey to the hospital in New York, where her world was suspended between fear of the unknown and hope for a miracle. With a heavy heart and a mixture of despair and hope, Ellie embarked on a harrowing journey to the hospital in New York. The flight felt like an eternity, every minute a battle against the fear of the unknown. Upon arrival, she was met by a serious and concerned medical team who guided her to the waiting room. Sitting in an uncomfortable chair, Ellie tried to calm her tumultuous thoughts. His heart beat so hard that it seemed to echo in the silence of the room. Finally, one of the doctors who was caring for Jack approached her with a grave countenance. "Ellie, I'm Dr. Patel. Please come with me," he said gently. Ellie followed the doctor down corridors lit by white lights, each step a journey into the unknown. They stopped in front of a conference room, where other doctors were gathered around a computer displaying X-ray images and CT scans. "How's Jack?" Ellie asked, her voice trembling with anxiety. Dr. Patel took a deep breath before answering, choosing his words carefully. "Ellie, your husband suffered multiple fractures and bruises. He underwent emergency surgery to stabilize his condition. Right now, he's in ICU in critical condition." Ellie felt a lump form in her throat. "But he'll be fine, right? You'll take care of him?" The doctor nodded compassionately. "We're doing everything we can, Ellie. He is receiving the best care. Now we need to wait and monitor his recovery." Ellie's despair was palpable as she tried to absorb the gravity of the situation. "Can I see him? I want to be next to him." Dr. Patel kindly agreed and guided Ellie to the ICU, where Jack was hooked up to monitors and medical equipment. His face, normally so serene, was pale and scarred by circumstance. Ellie held his hand gently, feeling helpless in the face of life's fragility. "Jack," whispered Ellie, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You need to stay strong. I'm here with you." She stood by his side for hours, silently sharing her hopes and prayers as the night turned into an uncertain dawn. Ellie's presence was a quiet comfort to Jack, even if he wasn't aware of it at the time. Amid the turmoil of the machines and the uncertainty of the future, Ellie found an inner strength she never knew she possessed, determined to face this ordeal alongside the man she loved more than anything. After weeks of anguish and uncertainty, Jack remained in a coma in the ICU of the hospital in New York, his condition stable but his recovery still uncertain. Ellie, who had been by his side since the accident, felt a mixture of hope and exhaustion as she waited for any sign of improvement. A month had passed since that fateful night. Ellie spent her days alternating between Jack's bedroom, where she held his hand and talked to him as if he could hear her, and the waiting room, where she read books and clung to updates from doctors. Finally, one day, Dr. Patel entered the room with hopeful news. "Ellie, there has been progress. Jack is showing signs of stability, and although he is still in a coma, his overall condition has improved." Ellie felt a weight being lifted from her shoulders, a mixture of relief and gratitude flooding her heart. "That's wonderful, doctor. What does this mean for the next step?" "We have decided it is time to transfer him to a hospital closer to home where he can continue his recovery in a more familiar environment," Dr. Patel explained. "The hospital in Burlington is prepared to receive Jack. He will be transferred this afternoon." Ellie nodded, her eyes waterlogged with emotion. "I will be by his side throughout the process." Hours later, a specialized ambulance arrived at the hospital to transport Jack back to Vermont. Ellie watched with a lump in her throat as her soulmate was carefully transferred to the stretcher, still connected to the tubes and monitors that monitored her condition. During the drive back to Burlington, Ellie didn't look away from Jack for a moment. She held his hand, whispering words of encouragement and love in his ear, as she had done so many times since the accident. Upon arrival at Burlington Hospital, Jack was taken directly to the ICU. Ellie remained by his side, never leaving her post at his bedside. She felt exhausted, but her sense of duty and love for Jack kept her strong. In the days that followed, Ellie found solace in the familiarity of her home and the presence of supportive friends and family. She continued to visit Jack every day, sharing news from the outside world with him and telling him stories of their travels and adventures that she hoped to be able to relive one day together. With every small sign of improvement, such as a slight handshake or an involuntary movement of the fingers, Ellie renewed her hope and her determination that Jack would recover. For her, each day was a precious gift, a step toward the light at the end of the tunnel that she knew she would find beside him, regardless of the challenges that were yet to come. After months of agonizing waiting and an intense emotional journey, Ellie remained by Jack's side, day after day, as he struggled to recover. The daily routine at the hospital in Burlington became her new normal, with regular visits to Jack in ICU and the constant hope that one day he would return to her. Then, one sunny autumn morning, as Ellie gently held Jack's hand and talked to him about the weather outside, something extraordinary happened. Jack's eyes slowly opened, revealing a faint, hesitant glow. "Jack?" Ellie whispered, barely able to believe her eyes. He blinked a few times, his blue eyes finally focusing on Ellie. A mixture of confusion and recognition crossed his face as he tried to process where he was and what had happened. "Ellie," Jack murmured in a weak voice, his hand trying to squeeze hers. Tears streamed down Ellie's face as she held Jack's hand affectionately. "Jack, you're awake. I am here. I'm here with you." The doctors and nurses rushed into the room, checking his vital signs and asking questions to assess his state of consciousness. Jack answered the questions with difficulty, but his mind seemed to be slowly adjusting to the reality around him. "You're back, Jack," Ellie said with a shaky smile. "We've been here for you, waiting for this moment." Jack blinked again, slowly processing Ellie's words. "I remember of the accident, and from you, always by my side." Ellie nodded, holding his hand firmly. "We'll get through this together, Jack. You are safe now." After Jack awoke from his coma, Ellie remained by his side, holding his hand affectionately as he slowly returned to consciousness. The doctors had decided it was time to inform Ellie of Jack's condition before he himself was fully able to process the news. Dr. Patel approached cautiously, his serious expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. He sat down next to Ellie and took a deep breath before he started talking. "Ellie, first of all, we are relieved that Jack has woken up. This is a good sign," began Dr. Patel, trying to soften the impact of the news that was to come. Ellie nodded, her heart pounding in anticipation. "What happened, doctor? How's he doing?" Dr. Patel looked at Ellie compassionately before continuing. "Jack suffered a serious spinal injury during the accident. He's paraplegic." The words fell like a weight on Ellie, who blinked quickly, trying to absorb the shock of the revelation. She felt tears form in her eyes, but struggled to keep her composure for Jack. "Paraplegic?" Ellie repeated, her voice a hoarse whisper of shock. Dr. Patel nodded gravely. "Yes, Ellie. The trauma was severe. Jack will need a long period of rehabilitation and adaptation." Ellie looked at Jack, whose eyes met hers with a mixture of confusion and sadness. She held his hand firmly, feeling a surge of compassion and determination grow within her. In a moment of great delicacy in the hospital room, Ellie held Jack's hand tenderly, her eyes reflecting the sadness and determination she felt in her heart. Jack looked at her expectantly, searching her expressions for any hint of what he might expect. "Jack," Ellie began in a shaky voice, struggling to contain her own emotions. "I need to tell you something." The doctors explained what happened in the accident. Jack remained silent, a lump forming in his throat as he waited for the difficult words that would come next. "You're paraplegic," Ellie continued gently, feeling the need to be direct and at the same time understanding. "They said that it was a spinal injury." Jack's eyes widened slightly, his mind struggling to process the enormity of the news. He felt a wave of despair and helplessness spread through his body, mixed with a deep sadness. "Ellie, me," Jack started, but his words failed in the face of the avalanche of emotions that overwhelmed him. Ellie shook his hand firmly, her heart broken at the look of anguish on his face. "I know this is a lot to take in, Jack," she said in a choked voice, "but I'm here. I will not abandon you. We will face this together, I promise." Jack looked at Ellie, his eyes wet with tears that he struggled to hold back. He felt a mixture of gratitude and despair, the overwhelming sense of knowing that his life had changed forever. "Ellie, me, I don't know how," Jack muttered, his voice trembling with emotion. "No need to know now," Ellie replied gently, holding his gaze compassionately. "We're only going to take it one day at a time. We'll find a way." And so, in the heavy silence of the hospital room, Ellie and Jack shared a moment of deep connection and vulnerability. There, in the intimate space of their unwavering love, they supported each other, knowing that together they could face any challenge life imposed on them, no matter how difficult or painful. After months of intense rehabilitation and care in the hospital, Jack was finally discharged. Ellie was by his side, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety as preparations to take him home were underway. The hospital room that had become their temporary home was now empty and silent, a testament to the challenges they faced together. While Jack settled into his wheelchair, Ellie adjusted the last details, checking that everything was ready for the transition to their Vermont home. Anticipation was mixed with apprehension, knowing that they were about to begin a new phase of their lives, marked by adaptation to a drastically altered reality. "We're almost ready to go, Jack," Ellie said with a shaky smile, trying to convey optimism. "Are you ready for this?" Jack nodded determinedly, despite the uncertainties that still hung in his mind. "Yes, Ellie, I'm ready." With the help of the nurses, they finally left the hospital, being greeted by a sunny day and the fresh Vermont air. Ellie guided Jack to the adapted car, where he settled in carefully, feeling the strange mixture of freedom and limitation that the wheelchair represented. On the way home, Ellie and Jack shared a comforting silence, absorbing the new reality they now faced together. Arriving home, they were greeted by friends and family, whose support was a constant reminder that they were not alone on this journey. In the days that followed, Ellie and Jack met the challenges of adaptation with resilience. They modified their home to make it more accessible, learned new care and mobility techniques together, and explored community resources to help with the transition. Amid the ups and downs of new life, Ellie and Jack found comfort in each other. They celebrated small milestones, like Jack navigating the house independently for the first time or discovering new ways to share special moments together. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, Ellie and Jack were sitting in the comfort of their home garden, soaking up the gentle warmth of the sun and the cool breeze that blew between the leaves of the trees. Ellie watched Jack fondly as he explored the new electric wheelchair they had recently acquired. He deftly navigated the lawn, experiencing the newfound freedom to move independently. "How do you feel, Jack?" Ellie asked, her blue eyes shining with a mix of pride and concern. Jack smiled, feeling the breeze on his face as he maneuvered the chair. "It's different, but I'm getting used to it. I think I'll enjoy the freedom it gives me." Ellie came over and sat next to him, her hand meeting his. "It's amazing to see you adapt so well. You're doing a great job, Jack." He looked at her gratefully. "You too, Ellie. I don't know what would become of me without you here." Ellie's eyes filled with tears, touched by the sincerity in her words. "We're in this together, Jack. Always." They remained silent for a moment, absorbing the serenity of the moment and the love they shared. Life had changed dramatically since the accident, but there, in the tranquility of their home, they found a refuge of peace and hope. "Sometimes I still catch myself thinking about what could have been," Ellie confessed after a moment, looking at the distant horizon. Jack shook her hand gently. "I know, Ellie. Me too. But we're here, aren't we?" Ellie continued with a sigh. "We have to focus on what we have now, in the present." Jack nodded, his eyes meeting hers fondly. "Yes, Ellie. And in the future we can build together." Each small, new step was a shared victory. Each challenge overcome was a testament to the power of his unwavering love and the human ability to adapt and grow, even in the face of the most difficult circumstances. But Ellie noticed the gradual change in Jack. Despite his initial determination and the tireless support she offered, he became increasingly silent and distant. The nights were the hardest, when the weight of reality became more tangible. One night, as Ellie helped Jack get ready for bed, she noticed the tired, resigned expression on his face. She sat next to him on the bed, holding his hand tenderly. "Jack, you seem distant lately," Ellie said softly, her voice heavy with concern. "How are you feeling?" Jack sighed, looking away from the ceiling for a moment before answering. "It's hard, Ellie. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in this chair, like my life has been reduced to this." Ellie squeezed his hand harder, feeling the squeeze in her own heart. She knew she couldn't change reality, but she desperately wanted to ease her pain. "I'm sorry, Jack," Ellie murmured, fighting back tears that threatened to fall. "I wish I could do more for you." Jack turned to look at her, his dark brown eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions. "You've done so much, Ellie. I don't know what it would be like without you here." Ellie wiped away a lonely tear that ran down her cheek. "I promise to be by your side, Jack. And I will be. But I also want you to know that it's normal to feel this way. That's a huge change." Jack nodded slowly, his expression tense as he processed his own emotions. "I know. Just me. I don't know how to deal with it sometimes." Ellie leaned in to hug him, wrapping him in her arms with love and compassion. "We'll find out together, Jack. We'll find a way. And no matter what happens, I'll be here. Always." They remained embraced for a long time, finding mutual comfort in the shared silence. In the days that followed, Ellie redoubled her efforts to find resources and support for Jack, looking for ways to help him cope with his emotions and find a new balance in his changed life. After more than 2 years since the accident, Jack had made remarkable progress in his rehabilitation journey. He mastered most daily tasks with skill and independence, and even managed to leave the house alone with his adapted wheelchair. For those around him, it was tangible proof of his strength and resilience. However, despite his accomplishments, Jack still found himself caught in a constant internal battle. The sense of physical limitation lingered, like a dark shadow that hung over him, obscuring any glimmer of hope that tried to emerge. One spring afternoon, Ellie found Jack in the garden, watching the sunset with a distant expression. She approached him in silence, sitting next to him and sharing the moment of tranquility. "Jack, you seem distant," Ellie began gently, noticing the melancholy in his gaze. Jack sighed, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. I feel trapped, Ellie. No matter how hard I try, I still feel like I'm struggling with the limitations of my own body." Ellie placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, conveying her silent support. "You've made so much progress, Jack, but it's normal to feel this way. Changing your perspective takes time." Jack nodded, a sense of frustration mixing with gratitude for Ellie's love and support. "I know, Ellie. Just me. I wish I could do more, be more." Ellie turned to him, capturing his gaze tenderly. "Jack, you're more than enough. Your strength, your determination, your love. All this makes you someone amazing. And I will be here by your side as you navigate this path." Jack felt a lump form in his throat, his emotions raw. He knew Ellie was right, but the internal struggle was still so real, so overwhelming. "What if I don't make it, Ellie?" he muttered, his voice faltering. Ellie shook his hand firmly, conveying all the conviction she felt. "We'll find a way, Jack. Together. Always." On a Tuesday morning, Ellie accompanied Jack to his routine doctor's appointment, a ritual that had become part of their lives in recent years. Sitting in the waiting room, Jack looked more thoughtful than usual, while Ellie held his hand affectionately, conveying her silent support. When it was their turn, they entered the office and greeted the doctor, a calm and knowledgeable man who had become a constant presence on their recovery journey. After a brief exchange of greetings, the doctor examined Jack's reports and asked a few questions about his recent progress. Then he turned to Jack with a watchful eye. "Jack, how are you feeling lately? You have made significant progress," the doctor began with an encouraging tone. Jack nodded, his expression serious. "Yes, it's been a long road. I've been trying really hard." The doctor nodded understandingly before proceeding. "I know you've done a great job with your rehabilitation. Do you have any specific questions or concerns that you would like to discuss today?" Jack hesitated for a moment, gathering the courage to formulate the question that consumed him inside. "Doctor, me? I wanted to know, is there any chance that one day I will be able to walk again?" Silence settled in the room as Ellie held her breath next to Jack, knowing how important this issue was to him. The doctor pondered for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Jack, your spinal injury was quite serious. It's hard to predict with absolute certainty, but with advances in medicine and technology, there's research and treatments in development that offer hope for the future." Jack lowered his eyes for an instant, processing the answer with a mixture of resignation and a spark of hope. "I understand. That's it. Hard sometimes to think that." Ellie put her hand on his, conveying all the support and love she felt for him. The doctor continued, his voice soft. "Jack, your journey is unique and progress can be gradual. but I want you to know that we are here to help you every step of the way. You have already shown incredible determination and strength." Jack nodded slowly, a small smile appearing on his lips. "Thank you, doctor. And thank you for being honest with me." The doctor smiled gently. "You are an exceptional patient, Jack. We will continue to work together to find the best ways to support you." And so, as they left the office, Ellie felt a mixture of emotions. She knew that conversation brought up a roller coaster of feelings for Jack, but she also saw in him a renewed determination to face the future. As the months passed, Jack continued to move forward on his rehabilitation journey. He had become more independent, not only in daily tasks at home, but also in managing his own doctor's appointments and physiotherapy sessions. Ellie, though proud of her progress, also felt torn between pride and a twinge of worry. One sunny morning, Ellie watched Jack prepare for his doctor's appointment without asking for his usual help. She approached him with an affectionate smile as he adjusted her outfit determinedly. "Are you ready to go, Jack?" Ellie asked, her voice reflecting a mixture of admiration and mild anxiety. Jack nodded, a gleam of confidence in his eyes. "Yes, Ellie. I can take care of it myself today. You don't need to worry." Ellie agreed, knowing it was time to give him that space. She was still there to support him, but knew Jack needed to feel his own independence grow. At the appointment, the doctor greeted Jack warmly, noting his remarkable progress. They discussed his treatment plan and his future goals, and the doctor praised Jack's determination to take a more active role in his own health. "Jack, I am impressed by how dedicated you have been to your rehabilitation," the doctor said sincerely. "You are becoming a model of resilience for many of our patients." Jack smiled, grateful for the recognition. "Thank you, doctor. It's a process, but I'm learning to deal with it." As Jack took more responsibility for his health, Ellie found comfort in seeing her partner gain confidence and independence. She knew he still faced daily emotional and physical challenges, but she was proud of his determination to face each of them with courage. Over the next few weeks, Jack continued to attend his physical therapy sessions with renewed determination. He acquired new skills and learned techniques to improve his mobility and strengthen his body. Ellie admired his perseverance and marveled at the way he embraced every challenge as an opportunity for growth. One autumn afternoon, Ellie found Jack in the garden, where he enjoyed spending time reading and reflecting. She was nervous, holding in her hands a small envelope that contained a positive pregnancy test. "I knew it was time to share the good news with Jack, but I also felt a pang of apprehension, knowing how complex their feelings were about having children after the accident." Jack looked up as Ellie approached, his dark brown eyes meeting hers with a mixture of curiosity and expectation. "What's wrong, Ellie? You look nervous." Ellie took a deep breath, gathering the courage to share the news that could change their lives again. She sat next to him, holding his hand affectionately. "Jack, remember how we talked about our desire to build a family together?" Ellie began, her blue eyes searching his tenderly. Jack nodded slowly, a wrinkle forming on his forehead as he tried to understand where Ellie was going with that conversation. "Well, I wanted to tell you that I'm pregnant, Jack," Ellie said finally, handing him the envelope with the pregnancy test. Jack's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the test in his hands. A slow smile formed on his lips, his heart filling with a complex mixture of emotions. "Ellie, that's amazing," he muttered, his voice choked with emotion. "We are going to have a child?" Ellie smiled, feeling relief mixed with joy overflow in her chest. "Yes, Jack, a baby." But even with happiness stamped on her face, Ellie noticed the shadow of concern in Jack's eyes. She shook his hand gently, waiting for him to speak his mind. "That's it. After everything that happened, I worry," Jack confessed, his voice trembling slightly. "I want to be the best dad I can be, Ellie. I want to give our son everything he deserves." Ellie looked at him tenderly, deeply understanding his concerns. "Jack, you're already amazing. You will be a wonderful father. I know that. We will face this together, as we always have." Jack nodded slowly, a soft smile returning to his lips as he stroked Ellie's belly, imagining the future that awaited them. "Yes, Ellie. Together." As the months passed and Ellie's pregnancy progressed, Jack seemed to distance himself more and more. Ellie noticed that he left the house more often, seeking moments of solitude and refuge away from her watchful eye. It was as if he was struggling with something deep and unattainable. One Saturday afternoon, Ellie found Jack in the garden, staring at the horizon as if searching for answers that were beyond her reach. She approached him cautiously, sitting next to him without saying a word, letting the silence envelop them for a moment. "Jack," Ellie began softly, breaking the tense silence between them. "You've been so quiet lately. I feel that you are distant." Jack sighed, his eyes still fixed on some distant spot. "I know, Ellie. I can't explain it. It's like there are so many thoughts in my head and I don't know how to deal with them." Ellie placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, feeling the weight of his words. "Jack, can you tell me what's going on? I'm here for you, no matter what." Jack hesitated for a moment before speaking, his words coming out slowly as he tried to articulate his feelings. "That's it. With the arrival of the baby, I feel scared, Ellie. Fear of not being able, fear of not living up to what you and our child deserve." Ellie felt a tightness in her heart as she heard his confession. She knew how hard it had been for Jack to cope with his new reality after the accident, and now the looming responsibility of being a father seemed to weigh even more heavily on him. "Jack, you are strong," Ellie said firmly, looking into his eyes with determination. "You have overcome so many challenges, and I know you will be an amazing father. There is no one I trust more to be by my side on this journey." Ellie felt a knot form in her stomach every time she watched Jack walk away from her, lost in his own thoughts. Despite the comforting words they exchanged that day in the garden, she couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something more, something Jack didn't want to share with her. She tried to keep busy with preparations for the arrival of the baby, creating a cozy nest and planning the future of the family. But as the days passed, his distrust grew. One night, while Jack was out again, Ellie found herself examining her cell phone, fighting a sense of guilt for invading her privacy. She found nothing incriminating, but the sense of disconnect between them persisted. When Jack finally returned home, she found him in the living room, lost in her thoughts as she looked out the window. Ellie approached him cautiously, struggling to remain calm as she asked what was on his mind. "Jack, can we talk?" Ellie began, her voice trembling with the intensity of her emotions. Jack turned to her, his eyes showing a mixture of surprise and concern. "Sure, Ellie. What's happening?" Ellie took a deep breath, gathering the courage to voice her concerns. "Jack, I've been feeling there's something else, something you're not telling me. I know the fear of being a father is great, but I feel that there is something more, something that you are hiding from me." Jack lowered his gaze for a moment, as if pondering his words. Then he sighed deeply, looking resigned. "Ellie, it's no big deal, it's just what I told you." Ellie sat next to him, holding his hand firmly, waiting for him to continue. Jack did not continue. Ellie stood up, feeling a weight on her shoulders, but Jack said nothing more. One night, while Jack was sleeping, Ellie decided to take action. She discreetly installed a hidden camera in the living room, just where she knew Jack spent most of his time when he was home. She didn't want to believe he might be hiding something, but she needed answers to calm her growing concerns. The days dragged on, and Ellie found herself constantly checking the camera footage on her laptop. She felt a mixture of guilt for invading Jack's privacy and despair at not knowing what was going on. Until, one afternoon, while reviewing one of the recordings, Ellie saw something that made her freeze to the bone. Jack, just when he thought he was home alone, was getting up from his wheelchair, Ellie's heart racing as she watched in disbelief at the scene before her eyes. Tears flooded her eyes when she realized that her husband was not unable to walk as he made her believe. The feeling of having lived a lie for so long left her in a state of shock. Ellie watched the recordings over and over again, unable to fully process what she had discovered. Every time she saw the images of Jack walking around the room, a mixture of anger, betrayal, and confusion overwhelmed her. She wondered why he had hidden it from her for so long, lying about his inability. That night, when Jack returned home from work, Ellie confronted him with tearful eyes and a heavy heart. She took him into the room, where the camera was hidden, and showed the recordings silently. Jack turned pale when he saw the images. He tried to open his mouth to explain, but words seemed to fail. Finally, he took a deep breath and looked at Ellie with a mixture of shame and sadness. "Ellie, me, I can explain," he began, his voice shaking with emotion. "I know you must be feeling betrayed, but please listen to me." Ellie sat on the couch, not taking her eyes off him. She wanted to understand. She needed to understand how he could hide something so significant from his own wife. Jack told the story of how the accident that left him paraplegic affected him deeply, not only physically, but emotionally as well. He spent months in rehab, struggling to accept his new reality and facing deep depression. "Me, I wanted to be the man you needed, Ellie. I wanted to be strong, but I couldn't. I was afraid that you would see me as weak, as someone who could not take care of you or our child," confessed Jack, tears rolling down his face. Ellie listened in silence, trying to assimilate everything he was saying. She understood now that Jack had acted out of fear and insecurity, not malice. But that didn't change the fact that he had lied to her. "Why didn't you tell me, Jack? Why did you keep hiding it from me?" she asked, her voice blending between pain and compassion. Jack lowered his head, unable to meet Ellie's accusing gaze. "Me, I was so afraid of losing you, Ellie, and not being enough for our son. I didn't want you to see me any other way, to see me as someone broken," he replied sincerely. Silence hung in the air as they both processed the words spoken. Ellie still felt the pain of betrayal, but she also understood Jack's vulnerability. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I haven't been fair to you, Ellie. Me, I hid behind fear and pain for so long." Jack looked into her eyes, gathering the courage to confess his deepest feelings. "I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to be the husband and father that you and our son deserve. I pulled away. I thought I had to deal with everything myself. I've been spending hours and hours in physical therapy. I wanted to surprise you. I may never walk like I used to, but I can get around now, and that's an incredible victory. I wanted to surprise her." Tears began to flow down Ellie's face as she listened to Jack open his heart. "Jack, but I was wrong," Jack continued determinedly. "I realized that we need to face this together. I'm not 100%, but I'm better than before. And this will allow me to take better care of you and our baby. Me, I apologize for walking away and not telling you anything. But, Ellie, I love you." Ellie hugged Jack tightly, feeling relieved to finally hear his words. Jack smiled, a smile full of gratitude and love. "I love you, Ellie. I will be the best father our son can have, with you by my side." Thank you very much to those who have supported the channel financially through the link in the comment pinned. This helps me to bring more and more stories to you. And don't forget to like and also subscribe to continue receiving the new stories.